Sovyaham Shiguro Shijula Parakamalang Shigurun Vaishnavamscha Shirupam Shagarajadam Shahaganaganadamidam Tam Shijivam Shadaivam Shaidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Shahaganan Malika Shibi Shakam Vidamushcha Mantra Guru Ajapta Shikha Guru Ganta Charanaya Gekariya Bandan Mancha Kapacha Krishna Prakashan Bhagavata Vaishnava Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Krishna Stesha Shri Deva Charinaya Vishesha Shanagara Krishna Desha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Dasha Amanagara Jaya Sham Lochana Dasha Paraman Koruna Kodui Jana Nita Igo Racha Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Jai Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Gauri, Jai Shishinidai Gauri Shidananda Brahmanande Hari Hari. Ami connect. Atikache. Today we're carrying on our discussion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after returning from his South Indian tour and then being kept in Jagannath Puri for 2 years by Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and eventually getting permission to go to Vrindavan. That was his intention. Mahaprabhu explained that Gauda Deshe Hoy Mordui Shamashai Janani Janavi E Dui Doyamoy. In Bengal, I have 2 shelters, Dui Shamashai, Janani Janobi, my mother, and Maganga, E Dui Doyamoy. Very merciful. So Mahaprabhu wanted to come to Bengal to receive Sachimata and to bathe in the Ganga and Mahaprabhu performed half of his Leela's pastimes, half of his avatars pastimes in Navadip. Ma Ganga. Mahaprabhu had a special relationship, particularly with Ma Ganga. Bancha kalpatado Shri Gaura Sundor Janavira Bancha Punna Kore Nirantor. Shri Vrindavan Thakur is describing how Bancha kalpatado Shri Gaura Sundor, that desire fulfilling Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Janavira Bancha, the desire of Janavi. Ma Ganga, Janavira Bancha Punna Kore Nirantor. He's constantly fulfilling her desire. So by associating with her, by bathing her. So in these pastimes, from the time that his appearance, the devotees were bathing in Ma Ganga. And then they had not like they have the shower. They're every day going to, Loki Devi is described by Shri Krishna as Kabiraj Goswami. Loki Devi would take bath in the Ganga 3 times a day. Ma Ganga, you can imagine. And in those days, no irrigation and no dams and things like that. She would have just been flowing through. When she floods. And no industry, no pollution. They're drinking the Ganga Jal. They're bathing in the Ganga Jal. Ma Ganga. Mahaprabhu, he performs his pastimes on the bank of Ma Ganga to enjoy his loving relationship with her. So he's missing. He's the viraha. He's feeling separation from Ma Ganga. Doyamo, she's so merciful. I'm beginning to understand something about the mercy of Ma Ganga, having been here in lockdown for close to 2 years now. And almost every day we're taking bath in Ma Ganga. And we're getting to see her different moods at different times of the year. This time of year, she's extremely exquisite. Because it's the end of the rainy season, she's bulging with water. And therefore, the same current that pushes her down from hitting the Himalayas at Kedarnath and what is that place beyond there? Kailash, Mount Kailash. When she hits the earth there, then boom, she comes pouring out Gomukh. That's the energy that she's flowing by here. It's like the same action. Boom. She's pouring down a celestial. That's why the Rishikesh, Haridwar, Jogish Rishis, they just sit on the bank of Ma Ganga, just hearing her, just feeling her spiritual power, because that's the Charanamrita of the Lord, and that's coming directly from the spiritual reality, that energy, that force of Ma Ganga hitting the earth planet and flowing down through Bengal. That's why Bengal is so blessed. And in Mayapur, she flows so beautifully, Bhagirati Ganga. She came here specifically to, as she was coming down, she spent time here specifically, as she was coming down from the celestial realm by Bhagirati Maharaj. She's called Bhagirati Ganga. As he brought her here, he turned her south as he's coming across the northern plain of India from the Himalayas, Varanasi, Allahabad, Prayag, Varanasi, Patna, Bihar, into Ramkeli, this gold capital of Bengal. And then he turns, and it goes into Bangladesh. That's called Podda Nadi. It's not called Ma Ganga. Ma Ganga turns and comes down through Bengal, here through Mayapur. Bhagirati Ganga, Adi Ganga, Bhagirati Ganga, and it flows into the Bay of Bengal. And here Mahaprabhu appeared, and that when we see her, the flow that we feel. In Haridwar you have to hang on to the chain. That's a spiritual, that you can come in direct contact with the spiritual power, because she's eternally. And Mahaprabhu he's in Mayapur, she's even more purifying, because as a Tirthastan, Mahaprabhu took bath here. This is the places of his pastimes, his loving pastimes. And she's flowing so deeply now, and she's bulging, and so it's just all like this, or reeds, I'm swimming there. No, it's like, you can't believe this. And Bhagirati Ganga, when she came, she said she wanted to wait here. Bhagirati Maharaj said, let's go to Kapilasham, and Ma Ganga said, no, it's almost Palgun Mosh. It's almost Falgun Mosh. I'll wait here, because on to the full moon of the Palgun Purnima, the day that for the celebrating the appearance, because on that day Mahaprabhu will appear. That time he hadn't appeared, but I will honor that day. Now, Srila Nityananda Prabhu, he says that, as revealed to us through the lips of Thakur Bhaktivinoda Nityananda Prabhu says that Jai John, Falgun Punima Diboshe, that person who on the Falgun Punima Diboshe, the day of the full moon of Falgun Mash, which is February, March, Ganga Shnan Kori, Ganga Nagarate Boshi, Ganga Nagarete Boshi, Ganga in Mayapur, who takes bath in the Ganga on the full moon day of the Falgun month. Sri Gauranga Puja Kori Upabash Kori, and Sri Gauranga Puja Kori worships Gauranga, does Nam Sankirtan, Upabash Kori, having fasted. The person who fasts, worships Gauranga, bathes in Ma Ganga on the Gaur Purnima day, the Falgun Purnima Diboshe. Nityananda Prabhu says that Sahasra Purush Purbagon Shonge Kori Goloka Prati Hoy Jota Mori. It's very beautiful. He says that Sahasra Purush Purvagon Shonge Kori. He takes along with him Sahasra, 1,000 ancestors. Sahasra Purush Purvagon Shonge Kori. 1,000 ancestors go along with him. Jota Tota Mori. Wherever that person dies, doesn't matter. Wherever they die, in whatever way they die. If they bathed in Maganga on the Falgun Purnima, on the Gaur Purnima day in Mayapur, wherever that person dies, they take with them Sahasra Purushagon Purvashon. They take with them 1,000 ancestors to Goloka. If you've just done that, how merciful is the combined manifestation of Mahaprabhu's dance and Maganga when they come together? That isn't that? It's like an expression. It's like a manifestation, a prakash of extreme mercy. If you take bath in a Ganga on Gaur Purnima day in Mayapur. And how many of us have had the fortune to do that? In ISKCON, since I joined ISKCON, that was the standard. We were the Sankirtan devotees. We were preaching. We were distributing books. We were the commandos of the spreading and the movement of Krishna consciousness. It was part of the contract living in ISKCON that every year you would go to India. There's everything. The tickets, you didn't even have to. They arrange it. That's how I started traveling. Got my part of the temple, arranged everything. I arranged passport and then the tickets, and you all traveled together. Everything just like a brahmachari. You don't have to worry about spending any money. All the tickets, spending money in India. You got also, and we'd be in India. We'd be in Mayapur for Gaur Purnima. I've had that fortune since 1986. Close to 40 years, more than 30. So, how fortunate we are. But in any case, I'm sharing to the experience of every day bathing in Ganga. It's just like a principle, regularly principles before I go. And of course, my Shahadamini, my wife's very, very supportive of that. She'll say, "Why are you not going Ganga?" So because it takes less, it's 5 minutes walk, and it's just a nice track. So what a fortune! And then swimming swim out deep. Mahaprabhu also swim out deep. He was a strong swimmer. And Kabir Vrindavan Thakur says that sometimes Mahaprabhu would swim across the Ganga. So in any way, he would swim out deep in the Ganga. So Gauda hoite moi dui shamashai janani janavi edui doyamai. I have that desire to go to Bengal, Vrindavan via Bengal, and associate with Sachimata and all the devotees and the Maganga. Now, this is the main theme of this whole session here. There's many lessons. This is like a subtopic just this evening, but it's right there. So I wanted to get into this one about crossing the border. But the whole theme is Rupshika, actually, Rupshika, but we'll get to that. Now Mahaprabhu was just going to, he'll say different reasons for going through Bengal. He'll say different reasons. He'll say, here he says to bathe in the Ganga and to see Sachimata. And then later he'll say to see all the devotees and take them with him to Vrindavan. And then he'll say in Ramkyali, he'll say, it's only to see you two brothers. So different reasons. Mahaprabhu comes, but it's all centered around going to Bengal and seeing the devotees there and wanting to take them. And Sanatana Goswami advises him, etc. It goes back. So we're looking at this whole epilogue in Mahaprabhu's Lila. And this evening we're getting an idea of how many people were accompanying Mahaprabhu when he left Jagannath Puri. How many people? Now, the principal associates are mentioned. Pradhan Kohilun, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, this is chapter 1 of Madhya Lila. This is chapter 1. No, it's chapter 16. Sorry, yeah, chapter 16. Madhya 1, sorry. So, Madhya 1, Madhya Lila, yeah, chapter 1, text 150. We're going to be discussing from there today. It's interesting because this Madhya Lila, chapter 1, is a summary of the Lord's Madhya Lila, pastimes. We know what Madhya Lila is. Joy Bocho, Dharmode Joy Bocho, Gomon Agamon, Kobo Dokin, Kobo Go, Kobo Budnabon. Mahaprabhu, in that 6-year period, he was always coming and going. He went to South India, he went to Gauradesh, we're hearing now, and then he went to Vrindavan. So that's the Madhya Lila. Within that period, he Sarvabhauma Sambhad, Ramananda Roy, South India, Prakasananda Sarvati, Rupa Sanatana, the main teachings are there. So the summary of the whole Madhya Lila is in chapter 1. But these incidents are described in detail. They're not described later. So we're looking at these indeed. The Rupa Sanatana, they're not described. He doesn't describe again. He describes in the summary of the Madhya Lila. But when Mahaprabhu is actually, later he'll go into full detail, Rupa Shikha. But at this time he describes a summary of them going, of Mahaprabhu going and first meeting them. And then subsequently the full Rupa Shikha that's described in full detail. So this section is an overview of the Madhya Lila, but still it's skimming details here now of the meeting of Rupa Sanatana, and it's also giving details here of the Lord's departing. So who's with him? Describes. Prabhu Shange Puri Goshai Sharup Damada Jagadananda Mukunda Govinda Kashishar Haridas Thakur Ar Pandit Pokreshar Gopinath Acharya Ar Pandit Damada Ramay Nandai Ar Bahu Bhaktagan. Bahu Bhaktagan. That's just Pradhan Kohilun. I just named some of the main ones, but Bahu Bhaktagan. Bahud Bhaktagan. Shabai, Ke Kore Ganon, they all joined it. Shabai, Ke Kore Ganon, you can't describe. You cannot describe the total number. So already when he's in Jagannath Puri, you can't describe the total number of people who are departing with him. And as they're going on. So then the king, we were hearing how, last week we were hearing about Gadadhar Pandit, that he gave up his vow, kept the sannyas, and Mahaprabhu said, no, you're breaking principles of religion, and I'm the cause of it. Wherever you are, that is Nilachal. Gadadhar Pandit said, but Mahaprabhu, he said, and then Gadadhar Pandit said that I'm not going with you. I'm not going with you. I have my own program here. It just happens to be same time, but it's not to go with you. I'm going to Navadip to see Sachimata. I don't know what you're doing, right? And he wasn't traveling with Mahaprabhu. And then when Mahaprabhu got to Katak, and then he knew that Gadadhar Pandit's also coming along, And then Gadadhar Pandit's thinking when it gets further enough, then Mahaprabhu will say, okay, come along. But Mahaprabhu calls him, and then they had that discussion. And then Gadadhar Pandit fainted, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him back. So now as Mahaprabhu is proceeding along, the king, he'd already, in that 2-year period, in the beginning, Mahaprabhu was hesitant, but due to the intervention of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Nityananda Prabhu, so many of the devotees, they all desired it. Mahaprabhu, he gave his mercy to King Pratapudra Maharaj, who was able to massage the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu and recite the verses of the Bhagavatam, and Mahaprabhu embraced him. And so the king became a great devotee. Then, Mahaprabhu was leaving, so no one could restrain him. But the king is arranging it. First thing he's doing is every day there's like a whole group of men. I don't know, maybe 5-10 men at least, Well, maybe more, maybe as many as he could get, because you can't count the number of the devotees with Mahaprabhu. So there'd be, it's not like there's 20 people they've got to feed. So first of all, he says that wherever the Mahaprabhu stops, build 5 to 7 new houses just to stock the grains. So you can imagine, and arrange everything for the Mahaprabhu's, his travel and his entourage, at least those devotees, but so many, so the cooking, the grains, people who had to be fed. And he said, wherever he crosses a river, make new boats and make a place of pilgrimage. Where he crosses the river, I will take my bath there. So it's like a royal, the king's two assistants are there, direct secretaries of the king, direct ministers of the king are arranging everything. I mean, actually, when we were recently in Jagannath Puri, had a wonderful experience because we were able to visit Jagannath Puri just with Bhakti Purushottam Swami. Bhakti Vijay Bhagwan Swami and another devotee. We were 5 devotees just going in different places and in different languages. So to be so close to Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj in Jagannath Puri, usually he's there with 12,000 devotees. So it was very intimate. Now I was discussing on these interviews. I was interviewing Maharaj. They like the dialogue, question and answer thing rather than just one person. And I asked Maharaj about that. Did you feel that because that the king was a devotee that helped preserve, because so many special places are there in Jagannath Puri that were there from Mahaprabhu's time, Gambhira, Haridas Thakur Samadhi. And so many things. The Shida Baku, Mahaprabhu planted the tree, and Haridas Thakur, Rup Goswami stayed there. Mahaprabhu went every day. Shida Baku, Brahma Haridas, that's there. That tree is there. The temple is there. The Jagannath Mandir is there. Gambhira is there. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has the permanent pretty well. So many deities. This trip with Maharaj, we saw so many deities. We saw deities of Swarup Damodar, deities of Jagadananda, the room where Jagadananda lived and cooked. And I never knew those places were there. I'd stayed just beside those places in the past. But you see, you need a guru, Tirtha Guru, to open your eyes. I didn't know the significance of those places. But interestingly enough, Jagadananda Pandit's deities, I was just walking past every day, taking a bath in the ocean every day. And then just their presence actually began looking in, inquisitive, and I saw this Babaji. Usually I was young then. We didn't go into temples, we just go to ISKCON. But then the deities, and I think we took Mahaprasad there. And then anyway, I realized that the deities were so significant. The Jagadananda Pandit deities were so significant. The shalagrams are there. I mean, the deities in Jagannath Puri. I was amazed this time at the places that Maharaj took us. And he took us to the Dandabanga Nodi, where Nityananda Prabhupada, that's a beautiful place. We have to visit there sometime. So many of these places are still there, and they're protected. And Alalanat, the bridge, is still there, where the devotees could assemble. Narendra Sharabha, all of these places. Puri is a very special place because of that, because the king was a great devotee of Lord Jagannath. It's such an ideal Vedic city, closest thing we could see to a Vedic city, apart from this touristy thing that kind of comes on the ocean road. But without that, the spiritual places, the holy dhams, the tirthas, the places of lila and importance in Jagannath Puri, the importance of that dham for the culture of Bharat Bhumi. I mean, Jagannath Puri is like such a special place, such an extraordinary place, such a spiritually surcharged place. And Mahaprabhu went there. He went there. He didn't go to Vrindavan, that's the place of Radha and Krishna, but he went to Jagannath Puri. It's very significant. I was discussing that. Do you feel that, because politically it was suitable for his movement, and Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj agreed that must have been a consideration, because his movement flourished so much. Immediately the guru of the king became his sold-out follower, and so many in Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu was able to just completely absorb himself in an environment of Bhakti Sangha, Sankirtan, and Krishna Smaranam. I mean, Jagannath Puri and Mahaprabhu. And then the king, was there any ever, the king was other places, not like that. Even in Bengal, as we're hearing tonight, that Mahaprabhu entered into Bengal. And just today, we're hearing, I helped edit, the devotees that wrote a letter. We wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. And one of our devotees was killed by a mob of radical extremists. who in Bangladesh who stormed our temple and killed the three devotees and destroyed the temple, burnt Prabhupada's Murti. And we saw the pictures. It's very painful. And I've never seen such a thing in all my 25 years of preaching in Bangladesh. Such an extreme attack on ISKCON. 3 devotees killed and a temple burnt down. I've never seen such. We hear in other Hindu temples in Bangladesh it goes on, but I never heard that in ISKCON. But yeah, it's a very serious matter. And the fact that Mahaprabhu, the fact that in Bengal at that time Mahaprabhu was under the Mughal rule. Jagannath Puri was independent, so it's very interesting. So we can see that when Mahaprabhu was leaving, but now we're hearing this evening that he'll come to the border of the Mughal, Javan, Mlecha, Raja. That's Bengal. That's Bengal at that time under the Mughals. And then, there's the whole circumstances change. And we'll hear that described this evening. But here you can, it's such an entourage. And the king is arranging the grains and buildings and building new boats at every river and a Tirthasthan. And he's sending out everyday men, with those big baskets that they have, Mahaprasad. You can imagine seeing those men because they'd be running. Because they've got everyday Mahaprabhus further and further away. You can imagine what a saver that would be from running from the Jagannath temple in the morning with the Mahaprasad on your head in a big basket through the jungles, through the paths, the villages to catch up to Mahaprabhu and feed him Mahaprasad. And what a saver. That's described that the king had arranged such, what a way to serve the Guru. It's an example of Guru Seva. How to make an arrangement, how to go to no end. And they kept on going until basically they just couldn't get that far in one day. Or maybe even they went for a few days, they'd be traveling at night. And then eventually the supply had to stop because it would take them weeks to get there and come back. So this is the arrangement. Now we heard that the different devotees are leaving. Last week we heard that Gadadhar Pandit, Mahaprabhu parted with him. Gadadhar Pandit fell unconscious. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him back. Now they're getting up to the city of Cuttack here, and there's mentions that Ramananda Roy, he accompanied Mahaprabhu to the city of Cuttack, and then he turned to go back to Jagannath Puri. Why he does that is not explained, but the departure, when Mahaprabhu carried on and Ramananda Roy remained there, Ramananda Roy fell unconscious. And started Gadadhar Pandit. Could you imagine that? I mean, we love a guru and we love the devotees, we love Krishna, but could you imagine that you're unconscious? Unconscious, that's a pretty deep emotional state. Yeah, fall unconscious. When someone leaves, you never hear. There may be a few extraordinary things. You hear someone's come back from the dead after 20 years and they were alive all that time. People fall unconscious, great shock. But just when someone's leaving, maybe they see someone after a long, long time, but they know he's leaving. They know this moment's coming. He's meditating. He's preparing for it. He's thinking it'll be in 2 hours. It'll be in half an hour. It'll be in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It'll be a few minutes. It's like preparing for it. It's not like a shock. Like something like that, which the shock of it just completely fills their mind and explodes in their mind, so they fall unconscious. But this is not like that. He's well aware that it's going to happen, but still, it's just purely the separation is so painful. So when Ramananda Roy fell unconscious, Mahaprabhu picked him up. Mahaprabhu picked him up on his lap and Mahaprabhu began to cry. Can you believe this description of the relationship? I mean, Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu, and he's a sannyasi, he's walking in sun. There's hundreds and thousands of people around him. And it's not that it's just them on the road, in the path. Where are all these people gone? All the intimate associates are there. And you can imagine what it's like. People just push and push and push and get closer and closer. It's not like there's huge open areas. They're standing there, the two of them are standing there. And Ramananda Roy, he falls unconscious. And then Mahaprabhu picks him up and he's holding him on his lap. He's crying. Rajer bidoy bhav na jay shahan. The way that Mahaprabhu, that his separation from Ramananda Roy is you can't describe. Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation from Ramananda Roy, very hard to describe. Rajay Vidoy Bhav, Najay Shahan, Najay Shahan is very difficult to describe. Kohite na pai e taha varnan. I can't speak anymore. E taha varnan, but I've described this much. Kohite na pari e taha varnan. Kohite na pari e taha varnan. To describe that, I'm not able to. Because it's intolerable. You cannot tolerate it, so I can't describe it anymore. So these are some of the ways that Kaviraj Goswami reveals to us the intensity of the relationships. You can't describe the pain that Mahaprabhu was feeling at separation of Ramananda Roy. So we may think, wow, do we want pain like that? But what was it? The Viraha Bhav. What was it? It was the Rajya Vidai Bhav. Yeah, the separation from the king. It's pain. But somehow or other, there's Nitya-lila, so it's not separation, it's just an experience, and the Sambhoga is going on because of Nitya-lila, so they're united somewhere. So there's variety, it's hard for us to even understand. But these described, and by hearing about them, we get some understanding of the personality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya, Doya, Koraho Bichar, the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should vichar, you should analyze, you should evaluate, you should examine it. Koraho Bichar, the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should examine it. Bichar kore chitte pabe chamatkar, because if you examine it, then you'll be astonished in your heart. So this time, now Mahaprabhu is leaving Odradesh. We're reading there from about text 127. No. Around about 150 or 155. So they came to the border of Orissa. And at that time, they came to the border of what we used to say Odia. It's written here as Odra Desh. Now we call it Odia. Odia. Here's called Odra Desh. Utkal, Odra Desh, Orissa, Krishna. Odia. So a representative of the government of King Prataputra came to Mahaprabhu's encampment, and he remained there for 2 to 4 days. He was serving the Lord, and he was also explaining to the Lord detailed information of what lay ahead. And that means political information, because that's why he's representative of the government. He says, he's explaining that the territory ahead, in fact, there's a river. And the territory beyond that, I think it mentions the river. If you want to research, you can find it. But somehow it was the border, the Mughals and the king of Puri, end of his kingdom. There's a river. So the territory ahead. So there was some sort of agreement that they had at that time, because, there must be. But he was explaining that the ruler of that area is a drunkard, and that you can't walk freely on the road. And that extended to Pichalada, so you couldn't cross the river. So let's stay there, going to stay there for a few days, and then he's communicating with the government. He's come there to negotiate. Not that Mahaprabhu just goes in, and I don't know about it. So as a representative of King Prataputra, he's come here and he's going to negotiate with the drunkard Mogul king as a diplomat. You know, he has diplomatic visa. He can do that. He can go in there. They won't. You know, he'll have his entourage, his soldiers' protection. He's an emissary of the king, so he can go and he'll get through. Now, at this time, while that person, that representative of King Pratabuddha is there, he's called a Bishasha, actually. Bishasha, a trusted person. So the governor of the Jabon Mlecha kingdom, Mughals, he sent a spy. And then that spy was observing everything in Mahaprabhu's camp. And then he came back and he began reporting to the Jabana king. The ek sannyasi oilo Jagannath hoite onek siddha purush hoy taha shohite. Onek sannyasi oilo Jagannath hoite. Sannyasis come from Jagannath Puri. Onek siddha purush hoy. There's many liberated persons along with him, and they're all chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, laughing, dancing, and crying. So he's giving this description. And that lokalok aishe taha deki bare, hundreds and thousands, millions upon me, lokalok. That's tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of hundreds of thousands. So millions of millions. Lokalok aishe, millions of millions already. You couldn't describe that number of people who were with Mahaprabhu when he left Puri. Now we're getting a further description that there's millions and millions of people who've come. We're just thinking Mahaprabhu was there for crowd. There's millions and millions of people. They can just come. There's no real not like now, the police have called in all the areas off. They're just coming. Now when these people come, these millions and millions of people, when they see him, punarapi jaite nare gor. They're not able to return home. They're not able to, when they see him, they're not able to return home. And that's interesting. Why is it that they're not punarapi jaite nare gore? To again return, they're not able to. To again return, he says. Prabhupada says they cannot return home. But why? It's not described why. Why they cannot return home. Is it we could speculate a little what would be the reasons. One reason is that just by seeing him, they can't stop seeing him. Right? Once you see him, then you just stand there transfixed. So that's possible. You see him, you're transfixed. Another reason is that they can't return home because they're unable to, because their mind has been so affected that they don't know where their home is. That's another possibility. It's not that they can't leave him, but they can't return home because they just forgot everything about their life. That's another possibility. But anyway, these are extreme things, but that's what it means. They're putting up in jaite nagore. They can't return home. It doesn't say momentarily. It says that they stay there. I mean, yeah, we hear big festivals and everything, even millions of people go on Kumbh Mela, and that makes the BBC and everything. But no one ever says that once they're there, they stay there. They can't go home. But Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he's describing that this is the circumstances. Sheshab lok hoy baale prai Krishna kohi nache kande gad gadi joy. Sheshab lok hoy baale prai. They're just like a man. There's like Mount Baal. Baal is the type of musician in Bengal. We've seen many. I still see on the train. Sometimes they wear a deep dark lal red cloth. They're usually with a family, at least a woman and like a wife, and they'll do singing and collect. And there's big Baal Sampradaya and Baal Shamaj in Bengal, and it's cultural. You see the Baals, they sing the traditional folk songs of Bengal. But Baal means mad, man. Even Thakur Bhaktivinoda, it's like a mad figure in colloquial Bengali folk. You know, he's a madman, the Baal, bad poet. Thakur Bhaktivinoda called himself a Baal. So they're big on Baal Ebrod. Krishna, Krishna, Nache Kande, God, God, Ajay. They're chanting the name of Krishna, they're dancing, they're crying, they're rolling on the ground. And then he says that kahibar kota nahe. You can't describe these things actually. Dekite shejani. Only by seeing them can you understand their full significance. Taha prabhabe dar ishara kori mani. Taha prabhabe. Tare, by his potency, I consider Tare ishara kori mani. I consider him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? I can't describe these things to you. You have to come and see for yourself. That's what he's saying, brother. You have to come and see it for yourself. I consider him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a minister of the king. See the significance of these words? We just think it's some guy. But this is the minister of the king. Can you imagine diplomats? They send someone to see comes back and he says that I consider him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You've got to come and see this for yourself. Then, after saying this, the minister himself, he began to chant the holy name of Hari and Krishna and began to laugh, dance, and sing like a madman, just like a Baal. So seeing this and hearing this, the mind of the Mogul magistrate became changed. So then he sent his own secretary. Now this is interesting. We were singing this evening at the beginning of this session that Poshu Paki Jure Pashana Bidore Shuni Jara Guna Gata. Poshu Paki Jure. The birds and the beasts cry. Pashana Bidore, stone melts. Shuni Jara Guna Gata. When you hear his qualities. Gorangir Gunete Jure Netashita Kori Nitolila Tareshpure, Gorangel Gunete Jure, the qualities of Gunete Jure. When you, Prabhupada says, when you appreciate the qualities of Gauranga. Nitolila Tareshpure, you can see the eternal pastimes of the Lord. So his qualities, this governor, he was a drunkard. And he just heard about the qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about how he was chanting the holy name of Krishna and being followed by millions and millions of people who couldn't go home having once seen him. I consider him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, seeing this, it changed the mind of the drunkard. He sent his secretary. Prabhupada will describe some comments about this, about changing the mind of this drunkard in terms of his preaching in the Western world. Just by hearing about it. So he sent his secretary to the representative of the original government, Vishwash Ashiya Prabhu Charan Bandila, and that representative of the Mogul king, he paid his obeisances, offered his respect to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Krishna Kohe Prem Vibal Hoilo. And saying Krishna Krishna, he became overwhelmed with love of Godhead. Now this is pretty astonishing. He's the secretary of the Mogul drunkard. He comes, he sees Mahaprabhu. Maybe it's the same person again. I don't know. But anyway, this person comes, because he's already mature. Krishna Krishna. Maybe he sends him back again. But this time, maybe something like that. Then he sent his secretary, Prabhupada says, maybe it's the same person. But anyway, whoever this person is, immediately he offers obeisances to Mahaprabhu's feet. And he says, Krishna Krishna. And then he's overwhelmed with prema. So coming down, and he offered his respect to the Lord. And then he's saying that if you agree, we can have a meeting. Tumi jodi agya deho etake ashia. I will bring him if you give the order. Jaban adhikari joy prabhuke mili. I will bring him to meet the Jaban adhikari. The Jaban adhikari, though the one who has the control over the Javans, Jaban adhikari, the king of the Javans. Joy Prabhu ke mili. I'll bring him here to meet Prabhu. Tumi jodi ashe agya deho etake ashe. If you give me the order, I'll bring him here to meet Prabhu. If you give me the order. Bahut utkantatar. Bahut utkantatar. Bahut utkanta. He's describing the king. Bahut utkantatar. Karache binoy. And he's very He's very humble about it. With great respect, he's offering this petition. He submitted this petition with great respect, and he has great desire. He's very eager, and he submitted this petition with great respect. Prabhupada's English is beautiful. He's very eager. Bahut ukantatar, he's very eager. Karyache binoy, and he submitted this petition with great respect. Karyache binoy. But of course, Bengali, that whole concept is presented so succinctly and so poetically in Bengali. Bahut ukantatar karyache binoy. Tomar shane shande nahi juddha bhai. I'll bring him to this place. There's no fear of war, no fear of any fight. He's very humble. He has great desire. He submitted this with great respect, this petition. Shushuni, the Mahapatra was associating, was coming along with the Lord, with the king, representative of the king of Puri. He's Mahapatra. Shushuni, the Mahapatra, Kohe, Hashe Vishmo, he's amazed, the representative of the Orissa government, he's amazed about this, that this drunkard is showing so much respect to this sannyasi. Madhyapi Javoner Chitta Ache Ke Korai, who has changed the heart of the king Javoner, the drunkard king, Madhyaper Javon, the drunken Javona, Chitta, the heart of the drunken Javona, Ache Ke Korai, who's changed it? And then this Mahapatra, he begins glorifying the Lord, that Apane Mahaprabhu Tar Mone Piraila, I think it must be due to the presence of the Supreme Mahaprabhu. Darshan Shmarane Jar Jagat Tarila. He can deliver the universe just by, if you remember him, if you see him. Just by his, even the world, Jagat Tarila. Just by remembering him, Darshan Shmarane Jar Jagat Tarila. By remembering him, this Mahapatra, Kaviraj Goswami, he's saying, he's glorifying this avatar, Chaitanya avatar. Darshan Shmarane Jar Jagat Tarila. If you remember him, if you see him, the whole world can be liberated. Now, Prabhupada says that the whole world's been liberated. So, what of it? I mean, Prabhupada, what a poet. How he's connected to this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just by remembering him and seeing him, the whole world can be liberated. Now, Prabhupada's saying, the whole world's been liberated. One may be delivered from material existence simply by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's holy name, or by visiting him, Prabhupada's purport. For Krishna consciousness movement, these purports in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita are very special. Prabhupada's writing them in a different style to how he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam purports. Prabhupada began his Srimad Bhagavatam purports in 1950s, late 1950s. And he wrote the same style right up to the end of his comments on the Bhagavatam. There's no change. Prabhupada's very theological, the Acharya. He's very much the representative of the Goswamis and the Siddhanta and Krishna consciousness. And that whole conclusion is there throughout the whole Bhagavatam. But here, it's very interesting. In 1973, Prabhupada's writing purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many purports like this, where he's writing from the point of view of the world Acharya who's just spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So he's explaining that. He says this is a time-specific statement. Time-specific Krishna conscious movement is being spread throughout the world. Prabhupada's talking about the circumstances at that time. On a few occasions in the Bhagavatam, definitely later cantos, and in earlier cantos, Prabhupada never makes statements like that. It's not pertinent to any time. You can read it from now, really in 100 years, really in 10,000 years. But Prabhupada's saying something that's specific to happening at that time. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada does that on several occasions, regularly in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He mentions Australia, he mentioned Melbourne. How the devotees were being arrested. He mentioned Melbourne a couple of times in the purports. And that's incidents from the 1970s, from 50 years ago. Now it's a whole different circumstance in Melbourne. But the way that the devotees relationship they have with the local government and authorities is described in the purports in the Chan Kazi section. So many times Prabhupada is sitting back and he's speaking from the point of view of the world Acharya who spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And it's very special when you read such purports. Krishna consciousness movement is being spread throughout the world, but not even one none of these people who could have accepted Krishna consciousness without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's grace. People are astonished that many thousands of Westerners converted to Vaishnavism. Generally, Westerners are addicted to meat eating, drinking, gambling, and illicit sex. Therefore, they're taking in Krishna consciousness. It's astonishing. In India especially, there is much astonishment at this. The answer, however, is given here. Darshana Shmarane Jar Jagat Daryala. See how scholarly and how expert Prabhupada is in establishing his argument. How it's possible that such people are able to become Vaishnavas is because he says that hearing him or seeing him and remembering him, the whole universe can be delivered. So Prabhupada's saying that here's an example. These people remembered him by chanting his holy name. They remembered him. They didn't see him directly, although we saw him in Melbourne because Prabhupada said to Prabhupada Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared here. So we had that special fortune also. We get liberated just by seeing. Now I'm beginning to realize after 30 to 40 years in Krishna consciousness that it's because Prabhupada installed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Melbourne and Nityananda Prabhu. And I went there and I bowed down in front of them. That's anyone who does that, for me, it happened pretty quickly. It just made me a madman, changed my whole life. Eventually, one thing after another. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there, because Prabhupada came to Melbourne. I mean, you can see the remote places, they just don't have that. I had that special mercy. I was born in Melbourne, just a few minutes away from where Prabhupada lived and preached. I was there, a young boy, but I didn't see Prabhupada, but I was a few blocks away, you could say, a couple of neighborhoods away from where Prabhupada lived and was writing Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Bhagavatam in Melbourne. He visited many times because it was the only property that the devotees owned in all of Australasia. So from 1974 onwards, Prabhupada lived in that temple in Melbourne and wrote there, and he installed Gaunitai, Radha, Krishna. Those Gaunitai deities are especially powerful. Yeah, I was fortunate that I was able to develop a relationship with them. Shesham bandana hija brita janama gelotar she poshu boro duracha. Shesham bandana hija brita janama gelotar. You waste your life if you haven't been able to develop a relationship Shesham bandana with Nityananda Prabhu. Prabhupada gave us that facility. He made it so easy to develop a relationship with Nityananda Prabhu. Because we could serve them, we could bow down at their lotus feet every day, Mangalati, dance before them, clean their temple, take their prasadam, and chant and dance in front of them. And then we'd go on Sankirtan, and in the evening I'd come back and I'd fall down at the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Shinu Shinu Nityananda Shinu Haridas Shavatramaraga Prakash. We first ordered Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, the first preachers in this movement. So much Nityananda Prabhu's mercy we received. By Prabhupada's mercy, he came and installed them. He sits on Vyasasan. I was able to clean that Vyasasan for the first 6 months of being a temple resident in service. One of many. Clean the Vyasasans. Clean Prabhupada's Vyasasan, the one he sat on. He sat there and he said, the people in Melbourne have become fortunate because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared here. So that's it. Prabhupada says it. It's a reality. Mahaprabhu says, yeah, as you say it, all Mahaprabhu, all Krishna does is fulfill the desire of his devotee. Prabhupada wanted him. Prabhupada says, they've become happy because you're here. And Mahaprabhu, okay, I'll be here. I'll make them happy. You want me? You say it's happening, and it's happening. Whatever you say is true. No doubt, Mahaprabhu was there. I came and I bowed down before his feet. And eventually we became so intimate. I used to go in the morning after Mangalati and we would bathe. Big deity, Mahaprabhu was big. Ashtadhatu, made another day, shipped out in huge crabs, weighed tons. We would bathe them and polish them with lemon juice and tilak. And your hands would be this kind of like, it comes off a little tarnish kind of the blackish, cleaning. I could smell all day that the chandan and the fragrance of the oil and the massaging. Smell all day. It gave me so much, so much mercy. So I remember, smell that, and then be on Sankirtan, special. Yeah, Melbourne Mahaprabhu ki jai. Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir. So he's saying that how he's seen, he's come here. So the Mahapatra is saying, yeah, this is an amazing thing. If he can come and see, just by seeing him, the whole universe can be delivered. So you can come along with 5 or 7 people, no weapons. So they make the arrangement, and the Muslim, the Jabon, the Mogul king is coming. Dure hoite Prabhu teki bhumite poriya. Dure hoite, seeing the Lord from a distance. He wasn't coming on the river, but later Mahaprabhu will cross the river and he'll meet him. But he's coming on land. Dure hoite Prabhu teki bhumite poriya. Bhumite poriya, he fell down on the earth. Dur hoite Prabhu teki, from a distance seeing Prabhu. He fell down on the earth. We don't do that. Usually he hasn't seen me yet. Wait till I'm seen and then I have to be seen doing it, you know. I mean, we don't usually do that. Seen from a distance, boom. Dure hoite Prabhu teki bhumite poriya dandavat kore ashru poloika haisha. He's laughing, he's shivering. Ecstatic emotions. Tears came to his eyes as after falling down on the ground. Stood up with folded hands, chanting the name of Krishna. And then speaking, you know, I was so unfortunate to be born in this situation. Would have been easier for me. Other circumstances. And I'm so full. Etashuni Mahapatra Avishta Hasha. Mahapatra can't believe what he's saying. Prabhu ke koren shtuti chorane dariya. Holding the lotus feet of the Lord, he's offering prayers. Okay, so it's the Mahapatra now, hearing the Muslim, hearing the Jabon king say these very humble prayers. The Mahapatra, he clasps the lotus feet of the Lord and begins to offer prayers for offering the Lord. Which is significant, we discussed briefly. I mentioned it, I tried to do that we go a little longer each week because the kirtan takes up time. So it begins offering prayers. Chando Pavitra Ja Srinam Shabane Hene Tomar Ejiga Boilo Darshane. Jashinam Shabane, by hearing your name, the lowest of man can become purified. And Tomar Ejiva Boilo Darshane, this conditioned soul has received your mercy. And then he's quoting from Shema Bhagavatam, one verse from Bhagavatam, Namadhyaya Shavanan Kirtana Pramanat Shmaranada Pikochit Svado Pisada Savanaya Gopade Kuda Punaste Bhagavan Darshanat, like devotee, Shavan Anukirtan, hearing your name, or remembering you, Apikuchit Svado Pisada, even a person born in the family of dog eaters, Savanaya Gopade, can become eligible to perform the Vedic sacrifices. What to speak of? Kudapunaste Bhagavan, the one who sees you, the person who sees you. And Prabhupada's again explaining this principle. Sometimes envious people ask how Europeans and Americans in this Krishna consciousness movement can become Brahmin and perform sacrifices. You see, that's also a time-specific statement that Prabhupada's making here. But at that time, it was only Europeans and Americans. There were no devotees, very few devotees from India in the movement in that Prabhupada's time. There was a handful of devotees, disciples from India. Bhakti Chari Swami Maharaj is one of them. Shubhag Swami Maharaj, very few. Yasomati Nanda and Gopal Krishna Maharaj. But I think he was in India. Well, anyway, he was a devotee from the very early days. He may have been in the US or Canada for some time before coming to India. But in any case, it was Europeans and Americans who were prominent in the preaching and doing fire sacrifices. So Prabhupada's discussing this, that the envious people ask how it's possible. Now, of course, you see here in Mayapur, here we have our Gurukul, Bhaktivedanta Vidyapit, Bhaktivedanta Academy Vidyapit, where fire sacrifice is taught, and that's many of our Western devotees, Chinese, Russian, Australian. They're all learning those things, fire sacrifice, and it's very public preaching. The Hati Parikrama, and this big Prabhupada's Murti was installed in the TOVP a couple of nights ago, and our foreign devotees are there doing the yagya, and it's like big public world. So it's very prominent there. So this is the principle, that simply by, they're better than a Brahmin, because even if born in the family of dog, it is because they're by hearing and chanting, they become pure, they become eligible to perform. He's more fit. He's more so than a duly initiated, doesn't require, Prabhupada said. Even though he's not doubly initiated, by the sacred thread ceremony, just by chanting and hearing, he's actually eligible to perform fire ceremony. So we don't do that, but in ISKCON we do give the sacred thread, but actually just by chanting the holy name, one's Prabhupada saying he is qualified to perform the fire sacrifice. And he's higher than a family initiated Brahmin because he's been purified. And that's discussed in our books a lot. But, if you're purified of previous sin, aparabdha palam papam kutam palam mukam kramanavaya praliyate Vishnu Bhakti Vitatman Padma Purana. Kramanavaya praliyate, gradually, step by step, aparabdha palam papam kutam bicham palam mukam, all the different stages of sin. Propensity, specific sinful desire, sinful act, sinful reaction, current reactions. Pralanaya Kramiyate, Vishnu Bhakti Ratatmanam. By Vishnu Bhakti, they're all removed one after another, including the sinful reaction which manifests a low birth. So this is all evidences are there. So this principle of he's saying that just by seeing you, how you become purified of all these. Mahaprabhu tar kripa drishti kori, Mahaprabhu tar kripa drishti kori, Mahaprabhu glanced of mercy on him. Abhoshnai kori, tumi kara Krishna. You chant the name of Krishna, certainly. Mahaprabhu orders you to chant the holy name. And the representative of the Jagannath Puri king, Maharaj Prabhupada, makes a relationship with that king and a friendship and offers gifts. And at that time, the Jabon king, he arranged everything for Mahaprabhu's subsequent. Yeah, that's right. I mentioned that. But, so now he asks for what to do. That he wants to get relief from all of his sins. It's text number 189. He wants to get relief from all of his sins of envious of Brahmins, Vaishnavas, and killing cows. So then Mukunda Datta says, well, why don't you have to do some seva? Mahaprabhu wishes to get to the Ganges. They're in Orissa, and they're in Odia, and to get to the Bengal, the Ganga. So please give him assistance. This will be your first great order. If you can comply, you will render a great service. So then the Jabon governor, he offered prayers to the Lord and then left. And then friendship with Mahapatra, the representative of the king of Puri. So now Mahaprabhu goes to the river. He's crossing the river. The Mahapatra accompanies him up to the river, worships Mahaprabhu's Lord's feet. They put him in the boats. That a newly constructed boat was made for Mahaprabhu. Newly constructed boat. And Mahaprabhu with his intimate associates put on that boat. And then as Mahaprabhu was crossing the river, on the other side, he's reaching the river, the governor of the whole area, the king, is waiting there to receive Mahaprabhu. And then he accompanies the Lord personally all the way through his territory. With 10 boats with many soldiers, because there's pirates and all sorts of dacoits on the road there. And then he reached, Mahaprabhu had almost reached Panihati, and we discussed what happens there, Panihati and Mahaprabhu reaching Maganga and taking bath and drinking. That we'll take up from there next week. And so Mahaprabhu bids that Jaban king farewell. The intense ecstatic love exhibited by the Jaban king cannot be described. Alaukika lila, this uncommon lila, alaukika, this uncommon lila. Kori Shri Krishna Chaitanya, that is performed by Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Jai iha shune tar janme deha dhanna. Anyone who hears this, Jai jaha shune tar janma, their life and birth are blessed, become perfect. Whoever hears this, their activities become glorious and their life become perfect. So any questions today? Okay, so we'll carry on. Thank you very much. Jai Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Dandavat pranams.